Freddie Mercury, the legendary lead singer of Queen, left an immortal legacy that continues to inspire generations. In this video, you will learn about Freddie's incredible life journey, from his childhood in Zanzibar to the grand stages of Wembley. Discover how he revolutionized music with hits like Bohemian Rhapsody, faced personal challenges with courage and left an eternal message of authenticity and passion. A story of overcoming talent and daring that proves that, even in the face of the greatest adversity, the show must always go on. Imagine a small tropical island with white sand beaches and palm trees swaying in the wind. It was in this paradisiacal setting that, on September 5, 1946, a boy was born who would change the world of music. Farrokh Bulsara, the future Freddie Mercury. He was born in Zanzibar, an island off the coast of East Africa, which is now part of Tanzania. Farrokh was born into a family of Indian origin, belonging to the Parsi community, followers of the religion Zoroastrian. His parents, Bomi and Bulsara, were simple people who were very dedicated to their children's education. Farrokh's father worked in the British colonial service, which guaranteed the family a comfortable life, but far from any luxury. From an early age, Farrokh was a different kind of boy. He had a sparkle in his eyes, an insatiable curiosity and an imagination that seemed to have no limits. On the island of Zanzibar, he grew up surrounded by a fascinating mix of cultures: African, Arab, and Indian. This diversity not only shaped his personality, but also planted the seeds of his creativity, something he would take to the stage years later. Did you know that Freddie Mercury, the star who sang to crowds, began his journey in a remote corner of the world like this? The Bulsara family home was modest, but full of love and tradition. His mother, was known for her kindness and for always encouraging Farrokh to dedicate himself to studies and music. He loved to spend hours listening to traditional Indian songs and singing along. And do you know what's even more incredible? Since he was a child, he had that unmistakable smile and a voice that caught everyone's attention. Even on such a small island, Farrokh dreamed big. He didn't know exactly how, but deep down he felt that he was destined for something big. It was as if the world was calling him to something special. Little by little, the adventures and challenges of his childhood in Zanzibar would begin to shape who he would become in the future. But that was just the beginning. What came next would prove that the boy from Zanzibar was just beginning to write his incredible story. And can you imagine what it would be like to grow up in such a magical place, but with dreams bigger than the sky? Stay with me to discover the next chapter of this epic journey. When Farrokh Bulsara was just 8 years old, his life underwent a major change. His family decided to send him to India, where he began studying at the renowned St. Peter's Boys' School, a boarding school located in the city of Panchagni. For many, this separation could be difficult, but for the young Farrokh, it was a gateway to a new world full of discoveries. In India, he not only found new friends, but also began to explore a side of himself that had been dormant until then: his passion for music. It was there, at the age of 8, that he took his first piano lesson. And guess what happened? He fell in love. As soon as he played the first notes, it seemed that the piano and he had a special connection. He spent hours practicing, and music soon became his refuge, his joy, and above all, his passion. Did you know that the boy who would one day lead Queen began his musical journey on a simple school piano in India? Farrokh wasn't just good, he was brilliant. His teachers soon noticed his natural talent, and he began to stand out in school performances. It was in this environment that he earned a nickname that would stick forever: Freddie. The nickname was easy to remember and soon became part of his identity, a bridge between his origins and the Western world he was just beginning to discover. But Freddie wasn't just about music. He also loved sports and was known for being very fast and agile at table tennis. Even so, his heart always returned to the piano. School, with its many British traditions, gave him access to a wider repertoire of Western music. And Freddie was enchanted by the sounds of rock and roll and jazz that were just beginning to gain traction at the time. And it was during this period that he began to dream. Although he didn't yet know how, he was certain that music would be his lifelong companion. He wanted to play, sing, and above all, create. Panchagni, with its peaceful hills and clean air, became the stage for his first steps on the journey that would lead him to stardom. Just imagine young Freddie sitting at an old school piano, practicing notes that would later echo around the world. It's incredible to think that it all started there, so simple yet so powerful. But the world still had many plans for Freddie, and his story was just beginning. He would leave Punchugni with more than just memories. He would take with him a passion for music that would guide him forever. Can you imagine what it would be like to discover something that would make your heart beat faster for the rest of your life? Let's continue Freddie's journey together. Imagine being just 17 years old and having to leave everything behind: friends, familiar places, and even the sunny climate of your homeland. That's exactly what happened to Freddie and his family in 1964. The political climate in Zanzibar was becoming dangerous, and the Bulsara family decided to seek safety elsewhere. Their destination? London, England. For Freddie, the move was a shock. Leaving the heat of Zanzibar for the grey skies of London was like entering a whole new world. But London, even in its cold and grey state, had something magical about it. A vibrant energy and a music scene that was changing the world. In the 1960s, the city was at the heart of the cultural and musical revolution, with bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones dominating the charts. Can you imagine what it was like for Freddie to swap the sunny beaches of Zanzibar for the bustling atmosphere of London? It was the perfect setting for his dreams to start taking shape. The Bulsara family settled in a modest neighborhood, and Freddie began attending Isleworth Polytechnic, where he studied art. He loved to draw and had a knack for creating bold designs, but it was impossible to ignore the music that seemed to be pulsing through the streets of London. Every corner had a new band, a pub packed with people singing and sounds filling the air. For Freddie, it was as if London was calling him to something bigger. It was during this time that he began to take a deep interest in rock and artists who challenged the norm, such as Jimi Hendrix. Freddie was fascinated by the freedom and boldness that music represented, and this lit a fire in him. He wanted to be part of it. He wanted to be on stage not as a spectator, but as someone who would make the audience vibrate. He also began to connect with people who shared his dreams. He attended local shows, talked to musicians, and absorbed everything like a sponge. Despite being shy in some situations, Freddie had a peculiar confidence when it came to art and music. He already knew that he wanted to be different. He wanted to create something that no one had ever seen or heard before. But London was not all glamour. Life was hard. The Bulsara family had to work hard to support themselves, and Freddie, like all young immigrants, faced challenges in adapting. Even so, he never gave up on his dreams. Every day in London was a chance to learn something new, to get closer to the world he wanted to conquer. London was the perfect setting for Freddie to start dreaming big. And he knew that, with determination, he could turn his dreams into reality. Little did he know that this young art student, walking the streets of the city with ideas bubbling in his head, would become one of the greatest icons of world music. This was just the beginning of his incredible journey. And have you ever imagined what it's like to start from scratch in a completely different place, but with the certainty that you are destined for something great? Stay with me, because Freddie's story only gets more exciting from here on out. Freddie Mercury, now a young man in London, had a restless mind and an insatiable passion for creativity. He enrolled at Ealing Art College, where he studied graphic design. His choice, of course, reflected his artistic talent, but the truth was that music was beginning to take over his life in an irreversible way. Ealing Art College was a special place. As well as being a vibrant art scene, it was a hub for young dreamers, many of whom were passionate about music. Freddie soon began to connect with other students who shared his love of rock and artistic experimentation. He would spend his days creating innovative designs and nights immersed in sounds, playing songs that were beginning to define his identity. Did you know that Freddie Mercury, before leading Queen, used his artistic skills to draw? He even created the band's famous logo later on, uniting art and music in a unique way. Freddie had a habit of seeking out local bands to play with. He wasn't someone who just dreamed, he wanted action. That's how he got into groups like Ibex and Wreckage, small bands that played in local pubs and events. They weren't famous, but for Freddie, every rehearsal and every gig was a chance to explore who he was as a musician and performer. When he got on stage, something magical happened. Even at small shows, he had a presence that drew everyone's attention. He wasn't yet the Freddie Mercury we know, but his energy was already impossible to ignore. He experimented with his voice, explored the limits of his creativity, and tested bold ideas that would later define his unique style. But it wasn't all easy. Playing in small bands meant facing rejection, dealing with precarious equipment, and often performing to small, uninterested audiences. However, Freddie never gave up. He used these challenges as learning experiences, and every mistake or difficulty was transformed into motivation to improve. It was also during this time that he began to stand out as a vocalist. Freddie had something special. His voice was powerful yet full of emotion. He could hit impressive notes and had a vocal control that left everyone around him in awe. Little by little, people began to realize that he wasn't just a good musician. He was an artist. Freddie also began to develop his visual aesthetic. Inspired by the rock icons of the time, he played around with clothing and styles that caught people's attention. He knew that music wasn't just about sound, it was about the whole experience. From an early age, he understood that image was an extension of his art. Imagine Freddie, still unknown, singing in a crowded pub filled with smoke and muffled sounds, but with an energy that made everyone present believe they were seeing something special. That's how legends begin. These early steps were fundamental. They were what shaped the Freddie Mercury who would conquer the world. He was learning, growing, and discovering his essence as an artist, a process that required patience, persistence, and unwavering passion. Can you imagine the humble beginnings of someone who would later sing to crowds? Stay with me because the next chapter of Freddie's journey is where the magic really begins to take shape. London, in the early 1970s, was a boiling cauldron of creativity and music. Rock was on the rise and bands were competing for space in the city's pubs and stages. It was in this vibrant scene that destiny began to trace the first steps of one of the greatest bands in history, Queen. Freddie Mercury, already known for his energy and talent, had befriended Tim Staffel, a college friend who was the lead singer of a band called Smile. This band was made up of two incredibly talented musicians, guitarist Brian May, who was also an astrophysics student, and drummer Roger Taylor, a young man with impressive drumming skills. Freddie attended Smile's shows and was a huge fan of the band's sound. He was always backstage observing and commenting on how the group could improve. Imagine Freddie Mercury, still out of the spotlight, watching Brian May and Roger Taylor play, already seeing their potential together. It's as if destiny was already writing the story. When Tim Staffel decided to leave Smile, Freddie saw his chance. He suggested they team up and start something new. With his artistic vision and charisma, he convinced Brian and Roger that together they could create something completely different from anything else that existed at the time. The idea was bold, but there was something in the way Freddie spoke that made it impossible to say no. Thus, the embryo of Queen was born. Freddie brought to the group not only his powerful voice, but also an aesthetic and theatrical vision that would become the band's trademark. It was he who suggested the name Queen, a bold and provocative title that represented grandeur, royalty, and ambiguity, something that defied the standards of the time. They soon realized they needed a bass player to complete their sound. After auditioning several musicians, they found John Deacon, a quiet but incredibly talented and technical young man. With his arrival, Queen was complete. Each member brought something unique to the band. Brian May with his hand-built guitar and powerful solos. Roger Taylor with his energetic drumming and backing vocals. John Deacon with his precise bass lines and songwriting talent. And Freddie Mercury, the charismatic and visionary frontman. Did you know that Queen only became complete when the right four members met? Each one was an essential piece of the puzzle. Queen's first rehearsals took place in small studios, and the sound they created already showed something special. They didn't want to be just another band. They wanted to create a spectacle. Freddie encouraged others to think big, to take risks, to mix styles, and to break rules. It was as if he could already see the glorious future that lay ahead. The road to success would be full of challenges, but Queen already had something that many bands took years to achieve: a unique identity. Destiny had brought these four musicians together, and together they would begin to create music that would echo around the world. And can you imagine what it was like when four such different people came together to form one of the greatest bands of all time? Stay with me because the sound of Queen is just beginning to come to life. When Freddie Mercury joined the band that would become Queen, he didn't just want to create music. He wanted to create something memorable, something that would go down in history. Freddie believed that a band was not just a group of musicians, but a brand, an experience, a spectacle. That's how the concept behind Queen's name and visual identity was born. Freddie suggested the name Queen almost immediately. At the time, it was a bold, even provocative choice, but he saw something powerful in the name. To him, Queen symbolized grandeur, royalty, and a touch of mystery. He knew that the name alone would grab attention. "It's a strong universal name that everyone can remember," Freddie said. But he also loved how the name played with ambiguity, a reflection of his own personality and the message he wanted to convey. But it wasn't just the name that needed to be iconic. Freddie also wanted a symbol for the band, something that would represent their unity and convey the idea of royalty and magic. It was then that he created the Queen logo, which is still recognized worldwide today. The logo was inspired by the astrological signs of the band members. 2 lions for John Deacon and Roger Taylor, both Leos. A crab for Brian May, who is a Cancer. 2 fairies representing Freddie Mercury, a Virgo. Around these elements, Freddie added a phoenix, symbolizing rebirth, power and immortality. The logo was like a royal coat of arms, but it also had a touch of mystery and art that reflected the spirit of Queen. The creation of the logo also showed how multifaceted Freddie was. He was not only a talented singer and songwriter, but also a brilliant visual artist. Imagine Freddie sitting down with paper and pencil, drawing every detail of the logo that would become one of the most recognized symbols in the music world. He wasn't just creating a band, he was creating a legend. With the name and logo decided, the band began working on their image and sound. Freddie always insisted that everything they did should be unique and grand. He wanted Queen to be unlike any other band. This obsession with perfection and originality would become the group's trademark. The birth of Queen was not just the beginning of a band, it was the beginning of a movement. Freddie, with his artistic vision and captivating personality, guided the early steps of this legacy. He knew they were destined for something special, something that would transcend time. Can you imagine what it was like to watch such an iconic identity form in its early days? We can't wait to see how this story continues to grow. In 1975, Queen were on their way to becoming a major band, but they still needed something that would set them apart in the world of rock. It was then that Freddie Mercury brought a bold, almost unbelievable idea to the group. He had begun to compose a song that would be unlike anything that had been done before. That song was Bohemian Rhapsody. The idea seemed absurd at first. A song that was almost 6 minutes long, mixing rock, opera and ballad? Who would bet on something like that at a time when most hits were under 3 minutes long? But Freddie was undeterred. He believed in his vision and knew that if executed correctly, this song could be revolutionary. Can you imagine what it was like for the other members of Queen to hear a song that was so different, so bold for the first time? Freddie believed they could change the world of music, and he was right. Freddie wrote most of the song at home on the piano. He had a clear idea in his head, but by bringing it to the other members of the band, he gave Brian May, Roger Taylor and John Deacon room to collaborate and add their own touches. The result was a masterpiece that blended breathtaking vocals, powerful guitar solos and an enigmatic lyrical story. Recording Bohemian Rhapsody was a technical and creative challenge. The band spent weeks in the studio, recording layer after layer of vocals and instruments. Some vocal parts, with their stunning harmonies, were recorded so many times that the tapes began to wear out. But Freddie and the band were determined to create something perfect. They believed they were making history, and they were. When the song was finished, the band faced another challenge: convincing the record company to release it as a single. Executives thought no one would listen to such a long and unusual song, but Freddie insisted. He gave the song directly to a famous DJ, Kenny Everett, who played Bohemian Rhapsody several times on his radio. The response was overwhelming. The audience loved it. Did you know that at first a lot of people thought Bohemian Rhapsody was crazy? But Queen proved that great ideas come from big risks. When Bohemian Rhapsody was released, it was an instant hit. The song reached the top of the charts in the UK and stayed there for 9 consecutive weeks. But the impact of Bohemian Rhapsody went beyond sales. It changed what people believed was possible in music. With its mix of styles and bold production, Freddie showed that creativity has no limits. The song's music video was also groundbreaking. Shot in just a few hours, it helped cement the idea that music videos could be an artistic extension of music, something that would influence generations of artists. Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't just a song, it was a statement. It was Queen telling the world that they were here to break the rules and defy convention. Freddie Mercury's bold vision led the band to global stardom, and the song became an immortal anthem. Have you ever wondered what it's like to create something so grand that it defies all expectations and becomes a cultural touchstone? That's what Bohemian Rhapsody represents. And Queen had so much more to offer. Behind Freddie Mercury's grandeur on stage was a complex, vulnerable and deeply human man. While the spotlight turned him into one of rock's greatest icons, his personal life was a mix of intensity, love and self-discovery. Freddie lived with a passion that overflowed into everything he did, but like all of us, he also faced his own dilemmas and moments of introspection. A central figure in his life was Mary Austin, a woman with whom he had a deep and lasting connection. They met in London when Freddie was still in his early days as a musician. Mary was everything Freddie admired: kind, loyal and strong. The two fell in love and Freddie even proposed to Mary. He described their relationship as a true marriage, even as their lives diverged. Did you know that Mary Austin was the inspiration behind the song Love of My Life? Their connection was so deep that it remained intact until the end of Freddie's life. Over time, Freddie began to explore his sexuality, an aspect of his identity that took him years to fully understand. At a time when being openly gay or bisexual was surrounded by prejudice, he faced challenges both internally and externally. Despite this, Freddie never wavered from being true to himself, even when he chose to keep certain aspects of his private life out of the public eye. Freddie lived surrounded by friends who formed a kind of chosen family. He loved to throw extravagant parties filled with music, laughter, and glamour. But at the same time, he was a man who valued quiet moments. His home in Garden Lodge, London, was his refuge. There, he devoted himself to art, to the cats he adored, and to the people closest to his heart, such as Mary, who remained his confidant and best friend. Despite his lavish lifestyle, Freddie was generous and sensitive. He had a habit of giving unexpected gifts to friends and staff, such as jewelry or special mementos. For him, love and friendship were the greatest treasures anyone could have. Imagine Freddie, a legend on stage, but behind the scenes a gentle man, surrounded by friends and his beloved collections of art and cats. This duality made him unique. Freddie was a man of contrasts. While he exuded confidence and boldness, there were moments of vulnerability when he questioned himself and his place in the world. He was passionate about life, but he also had a deep awareness of his finitude, something that intensified after his AIDS diagnosis. At his core, Freddie was a man who lived intensely, loved deeply, and never stopped being authentic. His relationship with Mary Austin, his courage in exploring his identity, and his passion for life made him not only an icon, but a human being with whom everyone could identify. And have you ever wondered how it is possible to be so great in public and so human in private? Freddie Mercury showed us that being authentic in all its facets is the greatest of freedoms. On July 12, 1986, Queen took to the stage at Wembley Stadium in London for what would become one of the most iconic concerts in music history. It was part of the Magic Tour, and the stadium was packed with more than 70,000 fans. Little did they know that they would be witnessing Freddie Mercury's last great live show. Freddie was at the peak of his performance. Dressed in his iconic yellow jacket and wielding his microphone stand, he commanded the stage like no other. The energy was palpable, and every song felt like a celebration of the unbreakable connection between Queen and their fans. From classics like We Will Rock You to the heartwarming Bohemian Rhapsody, the show was a roller coaster of emotion and power. Did you know that Freddie Mercury's last major live show was at Wembley? It was such a grand spectacle that it is still considered one of the greatest shows of all time. But even during this glorious period, Freddie knew something was wrong. He hadn't shared his condition with the audience, but signs of his failing health were beginning to show. Yet he never let that get in the way of the magic he created on stage. For Freddie, every performance was a moment to give it his all, as if it were his last. And at Wembley, that's exactly what he did. After the Magic Tour, Freddie decided it was time to stop performing live. His priority became recording music that he knew would last a lifetime. Despite the challenges of the disease, Freddie continued to work tirelessly in the studio, displaying a resilience that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. In 1987, Freddie Mercury received news that would forever change the course of his life. He was diagnosed with AIDS. At the time, the disease was surrounded by fear, prejudice, and misinformation. The diagnosis came at the height of his career, when Queen was one of the most celebrated bands in the world and Freddie was recognized as one of the greatest artists in music. But even in the face of this devastating reality, Freddie demonstrated a strength and resilience that would become as legendary as his voice. Freddie chose to keep his condition a secret, sharing the news only with a very close circle of friends and family. He did not want his health to become the focus or for his diagnosis to overshadow the music and art that he so loved to create. For him, continuing to produce and perform was the best way to fight the disease and keep his legacy alive. Did you know that even though he was fighting a silent battle with AIDS, Freddie Mercury never stopped creating music that touched the hearts of millions of people? Even in silence, Freddie faced the challenges of the disease with courage. He knew that time was limited, but that only motivated him to create even more. Songs like The Show Must Go On, released in 1991, captured his determination and unwavering spirit. Written in collaboration with Brian May, the song is a testament to Freddie's inner strength. Although he was physically weakened during the recordings, his voice remained as powerful as ever, a testament to his dedication and passion. The years after his diagnosis also revealed a more intimate side of Freddie. He spent a lot of time at his home, Garden Lodge, surrounded by close friends and his beloved cats. Freddie cherished every moment, making his home a haven where he could be himself, away from the public eye. Yet he never stopped thinking about the public. In his heart, he knew that his music was greater than anything he could personally face. In 1990, during Queen's last public appearance at the Brit Awards, Freddie was already showing physical signs of the disease. Thin and visibly frail, he accepted the award with a discreet smile, but his presence still radiated the same energy and charisma that had always enchanted the world. Imagine Freddie's strength as he stepped on stage for the last time, knowing that his body was failing him but his passion for music remained intact. He knew he was leaving an everlasting legacy. Freddie Mercury passed away on November 24, 1991, just one day after publicly announcing his diagnosis. In his statement, he asked the world to continue fighting AIDS and to remember him not for the disease, but for his music and his art. His diagnosis and the way he dealt with it brought more than pain. It brought awareness. It opened doors for conversations about AIDS, helping to reduce the stigma surrounding the disease and inspiring organizations and campaigns to fight for education and treatment. Freddie showed us that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, it is possible to create, love, and live with dignity. His strength remains an example for all. Can you imagine the impact that one person can have when facing such great challenges with such grace? Freddie Mercury didn't just face the end. He transformed every moment into art. One of Freddie's last great contributions was the recording of The Show Must Go On, released in 1991 as part of the album Innuendo. The song, written primarily by Brian May, was a tribute to Freddie's strength and determination. The lyrics speak of carrying on even when all seems lost, of finding courage even in the darkest moments. When it came time to record the vocals for The Show Must Go On, Freddie was very weak. Concerned, Brian May asked him if he could sing. Freddie responded with typical boldness, "I'll do it, darling," and that's exactly what he did. The final recording is breathtaking, one of the most moving performances of his career. His voice was full of strength and passion, as if he were giving everything he had to deliver his message to the world. Imagine Freddie Mercury, even though he knew he was facing his final days, singing his heart out in The Show Must Go On. He showed us that true greatness lies in never giving up. Freddie Mercury knew that the stage was his true home, and even when he could no longer perform, his music continued to be his voice. The last great show at Wembley was the end of an era, but also proof that Freddie's legacy would live on forever. And The Show Must Go On became the anthem of his courage, a timeless reminder that no matter what happens, the show must go on. On November 24, 1991, the world lost Freddie Mercury, but his spirit never ceased to shine. At the age of 45, he left behind a legacy that transcends time, music, and even life. His death had a profound impact, shedding light on the seriousness of the AIDS epidemic and helping to reduce the stigma surrounding the disease. Freddie, with his courage and authenticity, became a symbol not only of talent, but also of humanity and resilience. Even after his passing, the magic of Freddie Mercury lives on. His songs, full of emotion, boldness, and innovation, still resonate in stadiums, playlists, and hearts around the world. Who hasn't sung "We Are the Champions" in a moment of victory? Who hasn't been moved to tears by the epic vocals of Bohemian Rhapsody? His creations aren't just songs. They're experiences that connect generations. Did you know that even decades after his death, Freddie Mercury is considered one of the greatest inspirations in music? He showed us that art is immortal. Freddie's legacy goes beyond music. He also inspired a new era of freedom and authenticity. His courage to live his life as he was, without apology or hiding his essence, paved the way for other artists and ordinary people to feel free to be who they are. Today, Freddie is celebrated in many ways. Tributes, musicals like We Will Rock You, the Oscar-winning biopic Bohemian Rhapsody, and of course Queen's music, which remains as relevant as the day it was released. If there is one lesson Freddie left us, it is this: live intensely, be authentic, and never stop dreaming. His story is proof that passion and creativity have the power to change the world. So, do you want to continue celebrating the life and art of Freddie Mercury? Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and activate the bell so you don't miss more incredible stories like this one. Let's keep Freddie's legacy alive by sharing his magic with the world.